Hello, everybody, and welcome. Your mortal afro Josh, you're watching Gaming for the Boys, podcast made for YouTube, Twitch, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Today, I have a slew of topics to go over today involving gaming that has been more or less bandied about in the past 5 or 6 months or so. Covering things from the Steam machine to the latest Spyro game, information about that, Sony's betrayal, the layoffs at Xbox that are alive, and everything that comes with that, as well as mostly hot takes, my thoughts and opinions on a lot of these things, some solutions to them, and some uncomfortable truths. So, to kick things off, make sure I'm coming through loud and clear. Looks like it. All right. So, first things first, we're going to start off with the Steam machine. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth regarding the Steam machine as far as what it's capable of, power, the price, and understandably so. There are some things about the Steam machine that is not very popular, mainly being the price. It came out, and I think over $1,000 for the smallest base model with only 512 gigabytes or whatever, going all the way up to about $1,400 for the model, for the 2 terabyte model that comes with, of course, Steam controller. Now, the prices, I think we're all on the same page. It's unfortunate. Nobody likes the prices, this ridiculously overpriced, but not for, that's not something I would blame Steam for. Obviously, we're having a bit of an issue with SK Hynix, Samsung, all the major RAM manufacturers are, in my opinion, colluding to artificially raise the prices of computer parts for the sake of AI, because that's a huge money market for them that they see and they're taking advantage of. I heard there's a few antitrust lawsuits going around, but who knows where that's going to go. But just kind of focusing on the Steam machine, I want to talk about a few things as to why I'm overall in favor for the Steam machine and what it really represents going forward into the gaming or in gaming. So the first things first, the point. What's the point of the Steam machine? It's not even that powerful. It's not as strong as a PlayStation 5 Pro. What's the point? I've been seeing a lot of people try to make comparisons. Even Linus Tech Tips stupidly made this comparison, like the value compared to a PlayStation is better because the PlayStation is cheaper. And it's one of those things that really frustrates me because it kind of moves aside the fact that this is a computer. The Steam machine is a computer, and a computer will always be more valuable just off the rip than a console. And the ironic thing about consoles today versus 15, 20 years ago, consoles have done a whole lot to try to LARP as a PC with none of the benefits. I can't really think of really much of an advantage that a console today has over the lowest form of PC that's capable of gaming. The primary thing that I think anyone who pays attention to gaming knows is the access to the Steam library. Steam's summer sales, they allow for so much more than just the typical sale you would get on console where you have to pay to play online. PSN, Xbox Live, or Game Pass, whatever it's called now. It's been so long since I've spent $1 on a console subscription. Probably back as far as the 360. That was probably the last console I paid for Xbox Live. And the ironic thing about that, I thought it was a good value way back in the day when it first came around. But anyway, comparing a console to the Steam machine, what it is effectively a computer that is trying to create a console-like interface that allows people making the transition to have a more seamless experience, because PC, despite everything that's happened over the years, it's pretty daunting for the average user. Most people are not tech savvy. They don't understand computers, but they want to have a computer because the advantages are so obvious. And Steam, I have to give them credit for it. They're really going out of their way to try to find a way to bridge the gap between those who aren't very tech literate, but they can also, at the very least, enjoy the the value, the entertainment that a PC would provide, at least for gaming. So when it comes to Valve, and this isn't just about the hardware. Valve is working really hard behind the scenes with Linux, Proton, trying to really make gaming as a whole more accessible and easy. Now, of course, I'm a Linux fag. In case you haven't noticed, my background is of Endeavor OS, which is my choice distribution for my Linux machine. I already have a Steam machine. But one of the biggest values I see when it comes to the Steam machine and what Valve is trying to do is trying to divorce gaming from Windows. If you're involved in gaming on any major, level, you can understand a lot of the frustration that Windows has kind of artificially pushed into the conversation when it comes to just gaming. Now, PCs are an open platform, or they're supposed to be. But Windows is going out of their way to close the platform because they believe that they have the last word on pretty much anything involving computing. And that's where Valve deserves credit for really trying to destroy that narrative, because you don't need a Windows PC just to game. Now, there's a million reasons to have a Windows computer. Oh, excuse me. And mostly that's because a lot of the software parity is relying on Windows because it's the most popular operating system. Fair enough. But for at least the average user, somebody who's just using their computer for like the bare minimum, checking emails, surfing the web, stuff like that, anything that they can do that's work related that can be done on a website, perhaps, a Linux computer more than makes up for any need for that. So not only is it Linux, it's free. A lot of the appeal for Linux is that it's not tied down. It's genuinely, legitimately open for you, and it really has a heavy focus on security. You're allowed to use your computer. It's your computer. There was a time where Windows was your computer. Unfortunately, like with most of these corporations, they just kind of suck up so much money, and I guess something comes with that where the attitude just transforms from offering a service to abusing the users. And a lot of Windows users are just so used to it, it's hard to break away. My Linux journey started about 4 or 5 years ago, thanks to a really good friend of mine who happened just to be at the right place at the right time, where Windows was doing just enough shit to me where I was just like, I need an out. And he provided one. He showed me Linux Mint. He told me all about it. I did my research, the homework, all that stuff, and couldn't be more thankful for it. So that's why when it comes to the Steam machine, just in the background, because most people don't really pay attention to this, at least in the background, what the Steam machine can represent, at least for people who don't do that much with computing on a surface level and gaming, it provides a legitimate freedom to just enjoy computing without having to worry about a corporate overlord constantly hindering your ability to just use your system. It's your computer, not their computer. They're trying to push everything to cloud services, AI, all sorts of shit that nobody who really cares wants to be involved with. But it's one of those things where people need to be a little bit more aggressive with what they want. And I don't mean just like, don't buy a Windows computer. Don't use Windows at all. The only justification I can see for using Windows now is if you have a legitimate software. Like there are some things that just don't work on Linux. Fair enough. If that's your job, your hobby that you put a lot of time, money, and effort into, something like Adobe or whatever, I totally get it. This isn't an attempt to just bring everybody over Linux just for the sake of it. Like it's a use case, but there's room, and the Steam machine provides that room on some level. So to me, that's the value add when it comes to the Steam machine. Yes, the prices are high, but that's not something. The price for everything is high. A lot of things need to happen in the background to kind of bring everything back to where it needs to be. And this will be an important point later when it comes to affording reasonably priced hardware. But, we'll save that for later. But that's my subjective view over the Steam machine as a whole. I think overall, net positive. I wish things weren't the way they were when it came to the market, and then the RAM, the storage, it's a mess. But I understand. But in the end, overall, as far as just gaming is concerned, the Steam machine makes a very compelling argument for why you don't necessarily need higher, bigger, better, and more all the time. In my opinion, when it comes to the technologically speaking, we've kind of hit a point where we don't necessarily need anything really beyond the mid-tier gaming I guess aesthetic. 1440p, 30 FPS, 60 FPS, ideally 60 at the minimum. And because, for example, my computer is relatively old, but it's more than capable of handling a lot of games that have come out recently. I have a 3800 X3D, I believe, no, 5800 X3D for my processor, and a 6800 XT for my graphics card. And I have a 7900 XTX just sitting in the box because too lazy to put it in because I don't necessarily need it. And I kind of bought that under the assumption that, like, man, at some point I might need to upgrade. But kind of looking at the forecast when it comes to gaming, the real value falls onto the AA and indie market. AAA is just bloated and unnecessary, really. It costs too much, and even if you have a super sick computer, a lot of these games when they launch play like shit anyway. So, but that's slightly different topic. But as far as the Steam machine, in my humble opinion, a great idea from Valve. Timing was unfortunate, but overall, something that we should all kind of put into perspective when it comes to the future of gaming as well as affordable gaming. And I think that's the value proposition. Also, Linux. Linux is something that's really been blowing up over the past couple of years, deservedly so. But when it comes to gaming, it's going to need a little bit more of a push because normies are they're just apprehensive, and I understand. Being a normie, I was a normie once too, where I was just afraid that my computer would explode if I clicked the wrong thing. But it'll be okay. Linux is not that complicated. You can really choose the level of difficulty you want when it comes to Linux. But moving on, our next topic. Toys for Bob's first attempt at their own Spyro game. Now, I'm a little mixed on Spyro and Toys for Bob. Not because I think they're terrible or anything, mainly because I don't trust them. Now, that's not to say they're bad or anything. The distrust isn't coming from like I think they're an evil company and blah blah. No, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And here's what I mean. I'm gonna try to explain this in a way that makes sense. I'm an OG. If you can tell by the grays in my beard, I've been around for at least 100 years. So for me, Spyro the Dragon came out when I was about 7, 8 years old. And to me, to this day, I do not believe that many games that have come out in recent years that fall into that category have reached the standard that the original Insomniac team hit when it came to the original Spyro trilogy. Now, don't get me wrong. I thoroughly enjoyed the Reignited trilogy for what it was. Still play it every now and again on and off on my Steam Deck or my other PCs sometimes. And it's a nice return to form for the original trilogy. And it's a good way for new people to get in and enjoy it. However, I think they're a little too lenient when it comes to praising the efforts of the Reignited trilogy, because ultimately, when you look at what the Reignited trilogy is, you're really just tracing over someone else's work. And I don't mean to say that to like denigrate what they've done. They've done a lot of good stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, the dragon designs, awesome. The character attitudes for some of the characters really come out. I don't agree with Hunter, but nitpicking. But the scene composition for a lot of the cut scenes, a lot of this stuff is really good. And the Spyro Subway special. What's up, Gaseous Clay? Welcome to the stream. But yeah, there's, for me, one thing that I think gamers struggle with is consistency when it comes to their standards and expectations. Because in gaming, a lot of us, when we see something, we just immediately, oh wow, it looks great. And don't get me wrong, when I first saw the Reignited Trilogy trailer, that kid inside me, just it came out. I was like, oh my, finally, we can stop killing Spyro with these terrible attempts at trying to recreate what no one has been able to do since the original Insomniac team made Spyro. But that kind of goes back to what I mean when it says I don't trust Toys for Bob. Despite the Reignited Trilogy being as good as it was, 90% of why it was good was because it's based off of the original trilogy. Now, Toys for Bob is overall, I think they're a net positive when it comes to what they're capable of. They've shown they can make good quality games. I haven't played Crash 4. I wasn't really much of a Crash guy. I have the Insane trilogy, but I mostly kind of got that just out of like, well, Crash. I remember Crash. I played through it at my leisure, but I was a Spyro kid, so I don't want to use Crash 4 as a measuring stick to compare to what potential Spyro is, because I just haven't played Crash enough, and I'm not big enough into Crash to kind of make those. Even though Spyro and Crash are like this, it's still kind of so to speak. It's yet to be resolved. But just don't ask what in and insano. I know what it means. But when it comes to Toys for Bob, it's the same issue that, even though I couldn't have articulated it well back then when the next generation of Spyro games came on the PS2, the same problem still persists. Because even though those old games were bad, the attempt was made to continue the franchise. Back then, the concept of a remake and remaster just made zero sense. And I kind of wish it was still the case now. But, whatever. The concept of remaking something that was relatively fresh didn't really make sense. And even though those games were bad, at the very least, you had to give them credit for them trying something on their own based off of someone else's work. Now, Toys for Bob was given a pretty unique privilege in reimagining or remaking the trilogy, which would give them quite the advantage when it comes to what they build next, which in this case is the A Realm Beyond, the next Spyro. They said they didn't want to look at it as a Spyro 4, understandable. But A Realm Beyond is going to be their first genuine attempt at making a Spyro game, not counting Skylanders and all that shit, because that was something else completely. Big difference between doing a lazy upscale port and making something new. Exactly. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are conveniently ignoring, missing, not paying attention to, because of how excited they are for the next Spyro game. Now, I made a video that was from another live stream where I just kind of talked about my concerns with what we saw in the trailer. They put a heavy emphasis on flight. And of course, and that's what you do. You get impressions from trailers, talk about what you think, and blah, 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 blah. Now, they've recently, that Canadian guy, he's a YouTuber who went over some of the information that they showed involving their next Spyro game. I'm going to show it to you. Click. Share screen. Okay. According to them, here are some of the things to look forward to, or kind of take into perspective when it comes to the next Spyro game. Now, this links to a interview that they had with Toys for Bob on this other show. I'll put it in the description after the show, just in case anyone wants to see it. But here are some of the cliff notes that Canadian guy A pointed out. And Canadian guy A, he's a pretty good guy. He's very heavily influenced by Spyro, talks a lot about Spyro. Cool. I think, to me, he's good in my book. He's a good source of information when it comes to just understanding what's going on, any new information that's divulged. So, okay. So he says the views from the trailer were shocking for them. The game mashes in both air and ground exploration. That kind of addresses, to a degree, some of my gripes when I saw the trailer initially. Reignited is a springboard, but all legacy games are considered. That makes sense. The kind of what I was kind of hoping for. Not a full reboot, same character from the original 3 games on a new adventure. Makes sense. And you can kind of tell that based off of Spyro's appearance. He looks slightly older. Not called Spyro 4 because they wanted it to be a great entry point for any player, though it's chock full of Spyro legacy content for fans, which I'm assuming is going to come in the form of characters like Laura, Hunter, the Professor, all that good stuff. This game had a pin in it since Crash 4. Makes sense. It's not a flight simulator, and that's the Canada isn't even a real country. Unfortunate, but see, when I read that, it kind of frustrates me when I see things like that. It's not a flight simulator. Okay, look. I'm not the authority on like trailers or whatever, but what you see is important to what you're going to get, especially in this day and age where a lot of what we see doesn't really give much in the way of confidence. One of the biggest issues with Spyro that I had in my last video when I talked about it was giving him the ability to fly. At its core, Spyro is a platformer. Now, you can fly in the original Spyro games, but they were kind of set in these zones. But for like 90% of the game, you are platforming. Platforming dies when you can fly. And based off of the trailer that they showed and all of the things that they put in the trailer, they put a heavy emphasis on flying specifically. Now, obviously, the way anyone would interpret that is that, oh, he can fly now willy-nilly. All right, look, if it's not a flight simulator, you kind of shoot yourself in your own foot with this less than appealing description of what your game is. Take flight in a new adventure. Okay, Spyro. Anyway, all right. That's it's a little annoying for me, but whatever. Let's just put that aside. And is this part of the reason why I don't trust Toys for Bob? Because I don't know what it is. Maybe they just struggle with framing. The same problem happened when the Reignited trilogy was announced, and there was a whole controversy with the second and third games being digital only. We'll get back to that later. And some people will come to the defense like, well, they work for Activision. It was out of their hands. Fair enough, but I don't care. Lying is lying. It's either all there or it's not. It's either a flight simulator or it's not. So anyway, I'll circle back to that. Gyms have been confirmed. Obviously, it shouldn't have to confirm what. Anyway, Spring 27, confident release date, blah, blah, blah. Fire projectile hinted at being a fireball while in midair, spray, short range, no skateboarding. Cool, whatever. So here's the thing. When it comes to move this back over here. There we go. When it comes to conveying information to your player base, because look, I'm a Spyro guy, but I've kind of gotten past, I've accepted the premise that, maybe the best thing for a lot of these older games, older franchises is just to let them go. And a big part of that comes from just not trusting the modern industry's ability to properly develop what has come before, because the mindset for developers today is completely different than it was back then, as well as the technology available today. It kind of brings up an interesting conversation about the limitations of technology and why those limitations are responsible for some of the best games we have ever seen in our entire life. I am a fan of Spyro's foot longs. Hey, nip it, send it to the press. It is what it is. I still have my onesie. Hey, whatever. But but it makes a very interesting conversation about why limitations on hardware are responsible for some of the greatest games ever developed. And even though a lot of these games are reimagined, reignited, remade today, they're all they're not very favorable because a lot of the charm that went into making those games legendary 20, 30 years ago are completely lost in today's design aesthetic because of the focus on what they think they can get away with, changes that think are necessary for the modern audience, and all types of like stupid shit that ultimately destroys what used to be. Men overcame limitations. Well, not really. Limitations. The concept of limitations go far beyond just what we get over. Because, in my opinion, like, when it comes to like mankind and the growth of the human civilization, sure, that's how we survive. Fair enough. But when we kind of consolidate it to like gaming, you kind of see the problem we're having here. Now that we have infinite storage space, we're gonna now we can justify killing physical. Like physical was a limitation. Like, yeah, what was it really though? It creates all these different conversations that a lot of people hadn't considered when it comes to the future of gaming, especially now when the future, like a lot of the futurisms aren't really addressed. For example, okay, if we're not, hey, look, I said it before in the previous video forever ago. I would be so down for everything going digital if going digital met or exceeded the expectations and standards that needed to be met by physical. That hasn't happened yet. And for all of the conveniences that digital provides for us, we're set back further with things like ownership, accessibility, affordability, costs. These are all things that completely went ignored to the point to where they're selling a digital code for 80, 60, 70, 80, $100. And I'm like, okay, it's convenient that I don't have to get off my lazy ass and go to the store to buy the game. But why does it cost more to use my own internet connection than it does to go buy the shit in the first place? You know, but hey, that we'll save that for the Sony part of this discussion. But kind of getting away from it. But when it comes to Spyro, I believe Toys for Bob deserves some. They deserve some credit because hey, look, you did a good job with the Reignited trilogy. But if I'm gonna be honest, that's not that impressive. At this point, this game, Spyro: A Realm Beyond, is really where the standard and expectation should be measured accordingly to really for us to really discern whether or not Toys for Bob is capable of doing what Insomniac did 30 years ago. Can they do that? We'll have to wait and see. Anyone can trace over a picture. That's easy. And how well you do it is, it varies. You can do it really well and trick a lot of people into thinking you drew it, or you can do what Toys for Bob did and, thankfully, honor the original work as best you can and make it clear that that's what this is. So again, they get credit for that, but the credit only goes so far until you make your own thing, and then we can look. We have everything in front of us, and we can judge it accordingly now. Because there's plenty to nitpick about the Reignited trilogy, but I'm not going to do that. Like I said, overall, it was a good product, sort of. With the whole digital thing, but that was years ago, and most people don't even remember that because gamers have the attention span of a gnat. But anyway, moving on to the next topic. This one's pretty short. I wanted to cover a few games that I'm interested in. July indie games watch list, and some of only two of these I have down released in July this month. The main one that I'm excited for the most is Dench Attack. I meant to pull up a trailer to share with y'all. I know I forgot to do something. So this is a game that's coming out really in 2 days that I'm excited for because it represents to me. I think I need to plug up my headset. Starting to make beeping noises at me. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right. I think we're good now. Sorry about that. I meant to plug that up before. You still coming through? Yeah. Sensitive readers and political correctness ruined all of entertainment. Agreed. But that again, that's kind of towards later because a lot of this stuff really kind of comes back together when it comes to gaming overall. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But first, I'm gonna show you this trailer for Dench Attack. There we go. So this is one of the games that, to me, represent like the simplicity and fun when it comes to just gaming and what it was all about from the beginning, before it became mainstream, before it became the center of attention for everyone to inject their politics in such a way that's kind of counterproductive. It's counterintuitive. It kind of destroys the whole point for why we do what we do, why gaming is great, why we enjoy it so much. So, like, this is one of the games. The other game, I'll go ahead and pull that up next, just kind of get that going. I don't think you have a trailer for this game yet. PlayStation. Okay, so that's Dench Attack. It's a game that it's coming out, and like I said, in 2 days, in the 15th of July. So something I'm looking forward to. It's a lot of fun. The other game I have on here is, look, I can't pronounce Austrian or German. It's a Devergold, Devershold. I swear I can't pronounce it, but I will pull it up on my. I think I got it over here somewhere. You know what? I'll do one even better. I'll just go to his. I'll just go to his page. Was because you could do a better job of explaining it than I ever could. Yeah, so right here. Like I said, I can't pronounce it, but maybe somebody else can, since I'm a stupid American. The wait is almost over. Derek's Hold launches early access July 22nd, 2026. First classic, first-person dungeon crawler with tactical turn-based combat, base upgrading, and roster management, and an original dungeon synth soundtrack by Splendorious will soon be available. Tell everyone, wishlist it. Now, this is a game, the game type that I haven't played before, but I'm interested in because, since I've gotten older and fighting games suck now, I've kind of been branching out I've been broadening my gaming horizons. There's a lot of games I've been kind of interested in playing that I normally, wouldn't be into. I don't know whether it's because I'm older now or it's because, fighting games, what primarily took up most of my interests have been waning over the years. Probably a combination of both, if we're going to be honest. But these two games are coming out in July, and I'm excited for both of them. Now, going back to our next topic here. This one, this one hits a little close to home. Dead or Alive 6 franchise rot enablers. Now, this one is this one is this one's very frustrating because there was a time where I could say Dimmadome. Hello, Cross. Welcome to the stream. Dimsdale Dimmadome. But this is Dead or Alive was one of those games where I can sincerely say at one point in my life, I genuinely loved this franchise. Like it took up a significant portion of me emotionally because of how much I enjoyed this game and what it did for me growing up. And you can imagine that it hurt a great deal when things started happening. Like this is one of the few times where when I was young, change for me was just it was difficult because I didn't understand a lot back then. Back when I agree, Gash, it peaked with 4. But when things started changing, I started learning information about the game outside of just the game. Dead or Alive was one of the few games where I was so into it. I went out looking for information that wasn't even just game related. I wanted to know who made it. I wanted to know who was responsible for it. I liked it that much. Now, years have passed. Times have changed. Things aren't the same like they used to. And change is hard. It's really hard. But there was a significant fall from grace since Itagaki's departure of the Dead or Alive franchise. But there was hope. There was a point in time where there could have been a legitimately genuine conversation about this franchise could bounce back. It could forge its own path without Itagaki. Tomonobu Itagaki is the series creator, director. Because of him, Dead or Alive exists. Now, there's a few different things that I'm going to cover when it comes to Dead or Alive, but the main point of this segment in this live stream is to address what I think is responsible for the series failure and why it continues to fail and why I believe it will fail with their next major project, Dead or Alive 7, and the reasons why. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not who you think, or maybe it is. So the thing about Dead or Alive, I'm not going to go over the whole history shit. That's whatever. You can find that on YouTube. But the issue here is Dead or Alive 6 and its continuous downturn, series rot. And I'm going to show you a trailer, like for Dead or Alive 5, because Dead or Alive 5 was the game where I was extremely mixed on because I wasn't sure. I mean, at first, when it was first announced, I was excited because wow, Dead or Alive is back. I just want Dead or Alive. Kind of like where a lot of these modern DOA fans are now. That's where I was around 2011, 2012 with the announcement of DOA 5. But I was more excited that it just existed than I was about Itagaki being involved because, the time between Dead or Alive 4 and 5 was so vast. It gave me, it paralyzed me. I just wanted it that bad. Dinosaur Apist. What's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. But we're going over DOA right now. But I'm going to show you guys the trailer for Dead or Alive 5. And I'm going to walk you through how I received it and where it's kind of going from there. Let me see here. Let's do this. Share screen. Let's do window. I forgot this is a. Okay. This is a pre-alpha version of Dead or Alive 5. Just got home. Long day, fellas. The return is here. Yeah, man. Long day at work. I feel you. Okay. Okay, so you have to understand the jubilation I felt because that was like the final pre-release teaser that they showed. At first, it stopped when Hayabusa was hanging off the ledge. You got to understand the bar was set high with DOA 4, and I was kind of skeptical about whether or not they could top that. And Dead or Alive 5, they objectively topped it in terms of scale, scope, and entertainment value of what Dead or Alive is as a franchise compared to other fighting games. Ben Spastic, welcome. Looks like it was trying to ape 4. It did. It aped 4 in all the best possible ways because Dead or Alive as a fighting game is all about, it's like the WWE of fighting games, where something like Tekken is more grounded in, let's say, the nuance of technical fighting, how Virtual Fighter is extremely, intimate and, all this stuff. Like those are like serious fighting. We take this sport seriously. Whereas Dead or Alive was just like, look, I just want to see a motherfucker fly off the side of a building. And so they took that and they ramped it up to 11. And that's what made it so good. So when I saw that for the first time after years of radio silence and hearing about the departure of Itagaki at the time from Team Ninja and Tecmo, seeing that, it gave me hope. And DOA is fast and bombastic, just a bit over the top. DOA 5 was lethargic by comparison. I'd say it's arguable because a lot of things that Dead or Alive 5 did were based off of 4, but it was more centralized. My biggest issue with 5, outside of the the bombastic nature, was kind of what they did to the characters. All the characters got nerfed, their personality. Anyway, but that's beside the point. Just as far as like it being a fighting game, it achieved everything it set out to do, more or less. Now, I want to judge 6 based off of 5 and not the previous Dead or Alive games because everybody, people get a little weird when it's like, blah, 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 blah. You're an Itagaki loyalist. I am. But if we're going to be fair, let's take 5 and 6, as both of these games were made by the current iteration of Koei Tecmo. And when you compare the two, I'm not going to bother with a trailer for 6. Just take my word for it, or look into it yourself. The downturn in quality, the shift between 5 and 6 is deafening. And this is where my biggest problem, because like I'm at the point where I've already like crossed the Rubicon. Tecmo is dead to me. They're a shit company. They're full of shit. They're lying, cheating, manipulative bastards who don't give a shit about Itagaki or his work. As far as I'm concerned, everybody involved, not everybody. Let me slow down, bring it back. The higher ups involved with Tecmo, they all suck. They're genuine pieces of trash who can't make a game to save their life. They can make some stuff, but when just focusing on DOA and Ninja Gaiden, absolute ass. They can't do it. But as much as I dislike Tecmo, modern Tecmo, the only group of people that is somehow worse is the modern DOA fans. Here's the problem. Dead or Alive 6, in every way, shape, and form, is a complete step down, a downgrade across the board compared to 5, another game that this same studio created. 5, 6. We're not gonna hit them with the Edagaki stuff because that's too easy. You know, there's so much you could say about the previous DOA games that's better, and a lot of people, well, people who are serious about DOA understand this. But for the new fans, the normies who just got here with 6 and 5, even they should be able to see the clear downturn of quality between 5 and 6. And it's really frustrating because if we're looking at how games scale upwards, let's say you're a fan of Dead or Alive 2, where most people got in. From 2 to 3, you were like, oh wow, this game is better. From 3 to Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate, wow, this game looks even better. It looks better, it plays better. Everything about the game you can think about, there is a clear and obvious trend upwards in terms of quality and value. Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate to 4. Holy shit, once again, upturn. It keeps getting better. It doesn't get worse. There are things you can nitpick here and there, but the quality of the core game is objectively better than the last game. Dead or Alive 4 to 5. We're going to be fair. Stop it here. We're starting over. Just like how we started with 2 to 3, now we're going from 5. We're starting from 5. Dead or Alive 5 to Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. Trending upwards. Value proposition is better. Game looks better. The content is better. There was so much more added in Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate that it was just like, yo, is it possible that these guys can, they're cooking here. Catching up on the Steam Machine reveal section. Yeah, honestly, given how terrible pricing is, hardware really isn't bad. Yeah, dead ass saves me hundreds of hours of time a year, especially since my time is limited. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, exactly. And that stuff is just kind of going back to that. I didn't mean to do that, but yeah. But when it comes to that's why, like, when you're using this baseline to kind of justify your faith or interest in something, it has to be based off of something that they have given you. It's objective. Why do you like this? Why do you like Dead or Alive 5? I like Dead or Alive 5. When Ultimate came out, I'm gonna show y'all the trailer for that next too. The Dead or Alive segment, this is a little bit more personal, guys. Sorry, I know this is a lot of stuff we're talking about, but the main topics we're going over, some of these are just like they're but I'm gonna show you the Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate trailer. Because Dead or Alive 5, the base game, was pretty middling overall. There's a lot of stuff missing, a lot of characters, cut content, blah, blah, blah. But we kind of excuse some of that away because it's been so long. The interest in all the fucking shit, right? So that aside, we'll let that slide. Where is that? The good trailer. I think this one's it. Let me check it just to make sure. Okay, so this is the Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate trailer, and the Ultimate added a lot more content. So 5 to 5 Ultimate. Okay. Now, are you the guy that streams with Hypnotic? Nope. I don't even know who that is. I'm just a regular black guy with the afro. But no, I don't know who that is. But okay, so from 5 to Ultimate. Ultimate, as you can see there, was like truly, genuinely Ultimate. There was a lot of new stuff added between the first game and then the refresh that blew my mind. Even though I wasn't okay with the format, but that was kind of the trend that fighting games specifically were going towards, re-releasing another version, getting updates and all that stuff. Fair enough. I acquiesced to it. I wasn't a big fan, but whatever, But when you look at the value proposition between those two games, it's a no-brainer. Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate was genuinely ultimate in every name of the word, in every possible way you could think of. Here's the problem. That was the moment where Koei Tecmo was really starting to convince me that it was possible for them to not only exceed Itagaki in some form, or not exceed, but the potential for them to exceed him was there. You could see it. It was right in front of me, and I was like, okay, if this is how we're going to go, I'm all in. I'm cashing in. Points to Tecmo, you got me. You sold me on the idea. Now, there was another version that came after. It was a last round. It wasn't that big of it was more of just an update to the Ultimate. And if I remember correctly, you didn't have to buy it if you already had Ultimate. It just updated the game. You could buy last round by itself if you never bought DOA. But if you played or had Ultimate, it just updated the game to the latest version. It added a few characters and balance changes, whatever. So they ultimately kind of had, this was their crowning jewel to prove to the naysayers like myself at the time, was like, hey, Dead or Alive is in good hands. We got it. And any problems we have, we'll work it out as we figure things out as we move on. Okay, time passes over time. And with how successful 5 was, because 5 was doing really well. It was a resurgence of interest into the game. Shit tons of DLC, which, that's another thing, but it showed genuine interest in the game. The Fall Classic, the DOA carried the Fall Classic. That was a tournament that was running along for a while, and it was exclusively like DOA centered. Okay, you would think coming in off of that high, you're like, all right, hey, we're good. The next game is going to be baller. If this is what we're getting now, it's only up from here. No. I'll spare you the details, but let's just say the writing was on the wall with Dead or Alive 6. And people like myself and a good friend of mine, Cross, this is during a time where you're starting to see a lot of things in the gaming industry change for the worse. And me and Cross, we were eagle-eyed with all that shit because we were like, man, what's happening in the game? Blah, 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 blah. We saw all of this shit happening. And as soon as we saw it with Dead or Alive, I'm like, it's over. Because people were moving around, positions of management were changing, and then the DLC practices. People complain about DOA 5's DLC, but that mostly came in the form of costumes. Dead or Alive 6 DLC, pay $1 to change the character's hair color every time. So if you bought a hair color, you didn't keep it. Let's say you bought a red hair color because you want Ayane to be a redhead. Cost you $1. Oh, you want to change it to blue? That also costs $1 to change it to blue. But you don't keep red. If you want to change it back to red, that's going to cost you another $1. Again, this stuff is important. A lot of people now conveniently forget, like the modern gamers, like the memory, it almost doesn't exist. People who care about the specific things that is bad, we keep track of that, but the average person, completely oblivious, no idea. So, Dead or Alive 6 was a bad product. It was horrible. Yeah, Gash is making Capcom blush. Capcom was like the poster child for fucked up DLC for that entire console generation. And so when Dead or Alive came out, it was like, yo, bro, what is this? But, so writing was on the wall, like I said. When it comes to, Dead or Alive 6 was received very poorly, failed. That game was a failure. Tecmo dropped the support for the game after about a year. It was so bad. Fast forward 7 years. 7 years. You want to know what came out recently, like within the last month? Dead or Alive 6 Last Round. That's interesting. 7 years of radio silence, and all of a sudden we're refreshing Dead or Alive 6? Okay. What did they add? What do you think they added? We just saw from Dead or Alive 5 to Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate how expansive just the trailer alone showed you, like, hey, this is Ultimate means something. All right? If we're going to sell you the same game again, we need to sweeten the pot a little bit. Hey, we weren't sure this franchise was going to even exist, so we gave it a shot, and you guys placed your faith in us. We're returning that in kind by giving you more of what you want. You think that same logic held up for Dead or Alive 6? No. Dead or Alive 6 Last Round is Dead or Alive 6. Same exact game. You want to know what they added, though? They added a brand new lighting system. They turned the lights on. And the promise for more DLC. What kind of DLC? Costumes. Oh, and a character. This was after they announced Dead or Alive 7, by the way. Here's the thing that frustrates me the most. Because remember, me and my friend, we saw this coming a mile away. Dead or Alive 6 is the only Dead or Alive game I did not purchase. The only one. And that was a big deal for me because I was like, bro, oh yeah, I forgot the photo mode. That was a big deal for me because I was committed to DOA. I bought every game. I bought Dead or Alive 5 4 times. I had it on the 5 times. Yeah, I bought it 5 times. I bought it once on the PS3, once on the 360. I bought the ultimate versions for both again. When I was a good little boy. And I bought Dead or Alive 5 Last Round again on PC. I bought that game. No, I bought it 6 times because I had a Vita at the time. I bought it on the Vita. I bought Dead or Alive 5 6 times because I just want, like, more, please. Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy customer. I am satisfied with what you're giving me. And if buying this game tells you that I want more of this, so be it. You got me. Dead or Alive 6 was the only game I didn't play. It's the only game I didn't buy. I never purchased it. And that was significant for me because you could tell at the back of my head, I was trying everything I could possibly think of. MK Ultra, whatever you want to, whatever, like CIA, FBI, PSYOP, mind device. I thought of everything to justify buying that game, but I just couldn't do it because everything I saw led to ruin. It's like, this isn't Tecmo anymore. The Tecmo that built Dead or Alive 5 has left the building. They're gone. And Itagaki's already gone. So all of those negative emotions and feelings came back, and the truth was just that I can't support this company anymore. They are anti-common sense. But okay, that's I didn't mean to go off on a tangent whining about Tecmo. This is about the new DOA fan base. So Dead or Alive 5, Dead or Alive 6 last round came out. Not an update, not an upgrade, not even a side grade. Literally a downgrade. Same bugs from the last game are in there. They changed the files to where we're making it, modding it is more difficult. Interesting. And cost $40. You want to know what DOA fans were doing leading up to the releases? Because when they announced it, everybody colored this idea in their mind that they were fixing Dead or Alive 6. Oh man, what if they add rollback? What if they increase whatever? What if they fix the game? They make the game better. Everybody started coming up with all these thoughts and what they thought Tecmo, what the common sense thing Tecmo would do. Because I'm like, hey, Dead or Alive 6 was not that well received. Surely if they're going to release it again, they're going to address some of the problems it had on its original release. After all, it's called Last Round. Last time I checked, Last Round meant something. It meant a value add, just like the last game. Okay? But that didn't happen. You have people on the internet doing all types of silly shit, trying to hype this game up because they want DOA to be a serious contender in the FGC fucking bullshit Evo, what do you call that shit? Esports arena, which is part of the reason why it sucked, but that's a different conversation. Dead or Alive was its own thing. So you have people hyping it up. Everybody wanted to be an ambassador to Tecmo so they could get early copies of Dead or Alive 6 so they can kickstart their YouTube career talking about a game they love. Didn't happen. And the funniest thing, me and my friend, we were shitting on DOA 6 that entire time because once again, the wall had all of the writing. All of it. You'd have to be like, even it was even on the wall in Braille. So if you were blind, you could still see what was happening. And these people just refused, outright refused. And this is where we get to DOA 6 franchise rot enablers. Dead or Alive doesn't have fans anymore. Modern DOA has shields and idiots supporting this game. They will tell themselves any and everything to justify propping this bullshit up after Tecmo has repeatedly shat on them. It's like, and it's not even just Dead or Alive they messed this up with. Ninja Gaiden, another property from Itagaki that they destroyed. All these horrible decisions, all these stupid practices, killing online for Dead or Alive 5 on the PC, literally can't play it online, unplayable, making it impossible to play previous versions of the game because they want to sell you this new one. And they didn't even give enough of a shit to like properly, they didn't even do anything with it. We have a photo mode and a lighting system. $40, please, for the same game that failed 7 years ago. Also, it plays worse. And in some places looks worse. Paying $40 for a downgrade. So when it comes to this, I made a video a while ago talking about standards and expectations. Those don't exist in Dead or Alive anymore. Dead or Alive is gone. I have to find, I don't have to, like, I found solace in the genuine DOA fan base, the real one, the people who go out of their way to make sure the previous DOA games are accessible in some capacity. Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate Online. Some guy, out of the goodness of his heart and time, found a way to bring back a canceled project that was Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate Online. I'm still trying to figure out how to get it to work properly, but that's playable. I could play that with my friend. Fightcade, Dead or Alive 2 for the Dreamcast, playable online with people, wherever. And it's like Tecmo couldn't even be bothered. I'm hoping that at some point somebody figures out how to get the online for Dead or Alive 5 last round playable for PC. Because right now, the only way to play that is on console, but who the fuck about to pay online? Anyway. So the genuine interest of people who care about DOA, that community is going above and beyond to make older versions of Dead or Alive accessible and playable. That's where the value is. Tecmo as a company, gone, dead. Yet these people, these fans, go out of their way to justify all of the horrible shit. They're enablers. You want to know why Dead or Alive 7 will fail? It's because people don't understand what it means to have standards. The modern DOA fan base for Dead or Alive 6, no standards. As long as a piece of shit exists with the words Dead or Alive written on it, they'll buy it. But they don't understand that doing that confirms the death of the franchise. It's a rotting corpse. If the best you can expect from Tecmo and this franchise is a remake of their worst version of the game with no perceivable upgrades, enhancements, value add, nothing, you'll take anything. I don't blame Tecmo. Tecmo is now GOAT status. I'll always hate them, but when it comes to these people, please Tecmo more. Shit on this game, shit on these idiots even more. Don't worry. They'll find a way to make it seem like you are doing right by them. I don't see Tecmo like fucking this game up because that's money on the table. And it's like when people like me start talking about it, I get labeled a piece of shit, right? Because I was stupid enough to pay attention to everything that's been happening. You know, people, when gamers have this weird association to like, hey, as long as we support and buy it, ultimately that's best for it. I just want it to exist. You know, I don't. I will be happy if Dead or Alive ceased to exist. What we have is enough. Because believing that this current iteration of Tecmo is capable, having faith that they're capable of doing right by you when they have proven time after time over the course of going on 10 years that they are not only unwilling, they just don't care. These people care about a version of the game that they'll never get. Dead or Alive 6, somebody made a mod for that game that fixed a lot of the issues that people had with it, making it half decent. I almost got the game because of that. Decided not to, thankfully. But ultimately, I'm like, look, those people, they're the future of the franchise. Random motherfuckers in their basement with time on their hands to bring back a dead version of the game that was never released, or fix the piece of shit, now slightly polishing the turd to make it at least not stink when you're playing it. At the very least, those are real, genuine fans who try, not people who go out of their way to just assume like blind faith. It kills me because it's like this is objective realities right here in front of you, showing that at the very least, Tecmo is just not interested. And like I said, they've been doing this for more than Dead or Alive. Ninja Gaiden 2, Black. See, back when Tecmo was a respectable company, mostly being run by a real G who knew what he wanted, Edagaki, when you re-released the game and it had a name behind it, that the value add came standard. Ninja Gaiden 1, Ninja Gaiden Black. Ninja Gaiden Black, just like from Dead or Alive 5 to Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate, a clear and concise value add. You could not see it. So anyone who has an understanding of what Ninja Gaiden is, when you hear Black, the assumption is that, hey, this is going to be enhanced in ways, there's going to be more content, more value to justify me buying the same game twice. What was Ninja Gaiden Black 2? Ninja Gaiden 2 Black? An Unreal reskin. It can't get any more modern than that. Did they add anything? No. They just filter the game through an Unreal filter, which makes it play worse because Unreal Engine is a piece of shit when it comes to game optimization. Very few games can nail that to where the game looks and plays well. Normally comes several months of patches after the fact, completely destroying the artistic value that came with the original Ninja Gaiden aesthetic. And people bought that too. So it's like, okay, Dead or Alive Ninja Gaiden fans, no standards. They don't care. As long as something exists and the words Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive are on it, they'll buy it. No questions asked. And so that's why I call these people franchise rot enablers. When the people responsible for the game genuinely just don't give a fuck. Or let's say it's not that. It's not that they don't care. They're just all incompetent. It's one or the other. They're either stupid or evil. And fans don't see it. I guess picking the better. I'm just glad it still exists. It's like, bro, the last time I thought that way, I was like in my early 20s. So you can be forgiven if your first game was Dead or Alive 5, where you just don't have a basis of understanding. And I'm trying to be lenient there because even with 5, it's like, okay, if you like 5, and then you like 5 Ultimate, and then you like 5 Last Round, again, the curvature of value increases. Where is that expectation for 6? How could you justify buying 6 again after 7 years? For 7 years, they didn't do shit? It's like, anyway. So, faith in failure. When it comes to Dead or Alive or Tecmo, whatever, the ship is sailed on them. They're a terrible company. They're no good at what they do. But what's even worse than that, if that's possible, is the enablers. Dead or Alive 7. It's like I left a comment on one of these YouTubers videos where I'm like, look, dude, I weep for your soul in the future when Dead or Alive 7 comes out, because just walking right into a wood chipper. And it's like, dude, what has Dead or Alive done since Dead or Alive 6? What have they done to earn your trust, to earn your faith? What have they done? And from where I'm sitting, all they have been doing is shitting on us. They've been shitting on me. They've been shitting on you. It's like, okay, it's just been trash. The gradual decline of a series' relevance, value, and appeal, influence. Can't wait to buy the next game. If you say so, bro. You know, at the end of it all, I could always be wrong. I do not believe I am, but I could be wrong. Because one thing that they'll say is like, oh, what if it's good? Which is such a stupid statement, by the way. What if it's bad? Jackass. You know, both of these are non-statements. What if? What if? What if? Okay, what if the world explodes tomorrow and nobody gets to play the game? I don't see you considering that angle. Whatever. Fucking ridiculous. But that's Dead or Alive 6. But whatever. Okay, moving on. Jesus Christ. On to more positive things. Marvel Rivals Season 9. This is a game I've been putting a hell of a lot of time into. I haven't really been streaming it as much, but I'm about it, according to Steam, 830 hours. Playing the game a lot. The latest update adds quite a few things. It's an overhaul to the team-based system. Hold on, let me catch up on some of these chats. I'm sorry, you guys. Addicts just justifying their addiction. Yeah, and the sad thing is I can relate to some degree. But it's like, you know, at some point you have to grow up, man. There's got to be like, at some point you have to see what's happening in front of you. Like, I understand. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Halo raped. Call of Duty raped. Spyro raped. Then raped. Now to be raped again. Metroid Prime unfathomably raped to a new degree previously not thought even comprehensible, let alone possible. like I said, all that what you just said is called writing on the wall, and only people who give a shit genuinely care to receive this. Yes, it's not fun. I don't like it. It doesn't make me feel good. But the truth is the truth. Do you want to know at the very least, or do you want to just blindly walk in hoping for the best? Why hope and cope when you can see it right here? It's only after my purchase now I can justify posting bullshit on the internet, talking about how upset I am. I tell you, bro. Boy, and it's only because Dead or Alive was that game for me. Dead or Alive was that game. There's a lot of games I've played, but the one like the I walked onto the sword back then because it wasn't a threat back then. Dead or Alive was just that good. There was a lot of games like that. And to see that happen and for people to just, all right, I said I was done. All right, I can relate to you. Yep, you do gotta grow up. Yeah, just look at it for what it is. Like I said, it's not pleasant. I know people want to avoid feeling like shit. I get it. However, not to your detriment, because all it's gonna do is hurt you in the end. But yeah, going on about Rivals, it's going to be a pretty short segment because Rivals, I've been thoroughly enjoying. Been playing the absolute shit out of it more than I probably should. Gaseous Clay, I'm sorry, we are going to get onto some Blaze Blue and Street Fighter 4 because Pepe told me about it. I was like, man, I really just need to play it, but then I see everybody on Rivals, and then all of a sudden, anyway. But when it comes to like Rivals, the latest update added team ups, overhauled the entire team up system, which allowed for a lot of playable characters to get a little bit more sauce to their kit. And one of the biggest ones was Black Widow's rework. Now, I never played Black Widow, but I can kind of understand why some Black Widow mains are frustrated with what they've done to her, because she was a pretty difficult character to learn and play. Herb, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. She was a difficult character to play, all that good stuff. And the rework, it's hard for me to say whether or not it was warranted, because I'm of the opinion that, look, I'm not at liberty to say. I didn't play Black Widow. I will admit the few times I did play her, the intent was to kind of get better, because I do appreciate a good challenge, a difficult character, because that's good for me. I'd like to learn. I like to get better at something. I was absolutely cheeks with that character because her skill ceiling was really high. And as somebody who typically enjoys more difficult characters in games, for example, Makoto in Street Fighter 4, she was a difficult character, but I made her work. I can understand putting in all that effort for them to come back and just completely retool her and turn it to another one of these characters because people are having a hard time. I totally understand. So I'm kind of, in a sense, siding with the Black Widow mains on that one. But overall, the season has been great. My main, Adam, he's just becoming more and more perfect as time goes on. The Adam Warlock. And Marvel Rivals represents what I think is a very genuinely positive upturn in those types of games where the value proposition is technically free, but you can choose to incentivize them financially, which I probably spent over, I'm not gonna lie, at the minimum $400 on that game since it released. So yeah, but it is what it is. But I thoroughly enjoy that game. The amount of time I'm putting into that game, I think more than justifies. It sucks that it's always online to a sense, but that's where compromises should be made when it comes to a game type. For example, I don't have any issue paying monthly to play Final Fantasy 14. That's the contract we entered in when it came to playing this game. And when it comes to digital, when you do a digital overhaul, that's one of the things to consider when it comes to making a move like that, because a lot of these individual games, there's at least a point of negotiation that can be made to justify whether or not you want to invest in this game. So far, Rivals, it got me. It's free to play. The only money I spent is all cosmetic. No part of that game, as far as I'm aware, is required. You're required to pay in order to play. And I think that's good. Like I said, like there was a time where everybody was like anti whatever, but when you kind of look at the more nuanced appeal of what they're offering you, what's the advantage? The advantage is that the game is free. I didn't have to spend a single dollar. And there's a lot of things you can do in the game to accrue whatever currency in game to buy some of whatever you want. Is it a lot? No. Should it be? No. The game is free after all. But, that incentive structure between the user and Rivals, I think, is a good benchmark to kind of show where value should be when it comes to the type of game you're selling, playing, all that stuff. So we're going to get to there and get to that. But, let's just kind of talk about Rivals. Overall, I like it. Been enjoying the new season. The new character, Jubilee, I know she's been, I remember her always being dogged out for just being a not interesting or lame X-Men character. I'm not too big into X-Men. I know about it, but she seemed pretty cool to me. New design, and everybody in Rivals is looking mighty sexy, which is another great appeal point. It's like, yeah, just give me what I want. Give me what I want, and I'll fucking pay you. It's literally that simple. It's not a big fucking whatever. But moving on to our next topic. Xbox's world record layoff speed run any percent. Now, there's not a whole lot to talk on that writing was on the wall with this, but this goes all the way back to 2013. The funny thing is that when that happened, I guess the gaming community, the ecosystem wasn't as big as it is now. They've been trying to make her work for decades. You talking about Jubilee? I guess so. I don't know. I don't. She looks cool. A lot of my interest for Marvel characters comes from video games. Like I didn't give a shit about nobody unless they're in the game I like Marvel vs. Capcom 3. In this case, Marvel Rivals. Oh yeah, you Gooners. Yeah, Gooners run the world. It is what it is. But when it comes to Xbox and all of their layoffs, again, writing was on the wall. We saw this coming back in 2013. And the next time it was like a huge ordeal was when they acquired all these studios and they bought Bethesda, ZeniMax, and all that shit. And I remember talking to some of my friends about it. I was just like, all this money they're spending acquiring studios, they're not going to produce any games. And surprise, surprise, fast forward years later, and the games they did produce have been largely dog shit, with the exception of a very minuscule few games, which isn't enough to prop up the studio or whatever. One of those good games being Grounded. Thoroughly enjoyed that game. Grounded 2 is out for early access, but me and my friend Spikes were giving that the whole 1.5 wait period before we get into it, because early access for a financially backed French anyway. But it still looks good. But like I said, we're waiting on that. Jury's out on that one. But all these other games that have been releasing under Microsoft, it's unfortunate because people are losing their jobs. But at the same time, you can't be surprised, because Xbox obviously backed by Microsoft, which is probably the richest company on the planet, valuated in trillions of dollars, God knows how much. And so they got all this buying power, but when it comes to quality or content, they lack, and they've been lacking in more places than just Xbox. Windows, for example. And it's been like this, the downward trend over time. And it's just been getting worse and worse, where people like me, it's like we're no longer interested in what they're selling. We can't keep doing this anymore, because the content is subpar. It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, just like you said, Gaseous, they peaked during the 360. and started declining at the same time. Because to me, the decline really started when they changed the dashboard from the Blade system to that new interface that was slower to load, added advertisements, which was the worst, and just slowly drained the value from Xbox Live. Because, like I said, there was the last time I paid for online was Xbox Live, back during the 360 era, because that's when it was good. But back then, PlayStation 3, their online was free at the time. Because I remembered I transitioned from the 360 to the PS3 and then to PC. Hate the Metro UI. Yeah, because to me, like I had an issue with that because I really liked the Blade system. It was fast, clean, and everything I needed I could get to in seconds. Versus the new dashboard where you have to wait for shit to load, because it's not like the Xbox 360 had a significant amount of memory to do all that shit. You know, that's when I started learning about the value of PCs and why consoles were getting worse somehow. You know, I used to be a genuine Xbox bro, but over time, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Consoles are no longer consoles. The last legitimate console, if you can call it that, was the 360 and the PS3. The Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, like these consoles became more PC-like, but the more PC-like they became, the more locked down they became because they still LARP as there were consoles pretending to be PCs. So you then start to ask yourself the question of where's the value? Because when I made the transition to PC, I could see why PC was so appealing. Games, in most cases, ran better. You had a lot more purchasing options instead of just the marketplace. You could find games cheaper because they were digital. It was a PC, which meant you had more control over your games, like mods and stuff. But all that stuff changed over time with the consoles because the console value used to be physical media, plug and play. Very easy, like no friction to set up and play. PCs back then had a lot of friction, which was why the only people that championed it were really competent PC guys. That's the way it used to be. You know, Windows made sure to fucking change that. Hold on one second, take a sip. Good stuff. But what was I saying? Yeah, okay. But the value add for consoles was very straightforward back then. So when they slowly changed to PCs, they got slower. The interface got more frustrating. It just took, they created a new type of friction, ironically, because I eventually got around to getting an Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 years after, I got them just for cheap at the Game Exchange. I think I got each one for like $200 or less. Because I still have a PSN account and a library of games on there that I still wanted. Obviously, PlayStation is going out of their way to make sure that that's not going to be the case in the future. But I have to work around for that. Wink, wink. And for the Xbox One X, it was the only way to play Ninja Gaiden 2, the real Ninja Gaiden 2. So that was like my reason for getting that. And same thing, there's a few games on there. The one good thing that Xbox had going for it, I don't know how much longer it's going to last, was backwards compatibility with the original Xbox games, many of which I still have. Here, let me show you. Physical is king. A lot of these games I still kept over all these years. Oh, make sure. So you got the Fatal Frame 2, Phantom Dust, Odyssey 2, Odyssey 1, Doom, the first Fatal Frame on the original Xbox, Crash to Insanity, Shenmue 2, Neo Wave, King of Fighters, Silent Hill, Breakdown, one of my favorites, Fable before it got terrible and gay, Burnout, another one of my favorites, True Crime, Streets of LA, Ninja Gaiden 2, the game that matters, Unreal Championship, the Star Ocean, I'm about to say Fantasy Star Ocean, that's not mine, Dead or Alive Ultimate 1, Resident Evil 5, another breakdown for some reason. I'm not really sure where that came from, but I got it. Final Fantasy 2, King of Fighters 2006 is the PlayStation section. And Grandia, Resident Evil 4, Neo Geo Battle Coliseum, Space Channel 5, Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven, Fatal Frame 3, the only version on the PS2 at the time. More original Xbox games, Minority Report, which is a pretty fun game. The original Sonic Riders, where that series peaked. Dead or Alive 4. Dead or Alive Ultimate 1 again. Told you about this game several times, even before DOA 5. Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate. My brother has the other copy. Dead or Alive 3 and Dead or Alive 3 again. Jet Set Radio Future, Sega GT 2002. Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, which they'll never touch again. Another copy of Extreme Beach Volleyball because, I'm a fucking DOA fag. Magna Carta, the other disc to Grandia, Crash to Insanity again. Anarchy Reigns, another great game that we'll never see again. And Magna Carta. Here's my Dreamcast library, Shenmue, all that good stuff, but that's not what you came here for. So, I'm very much pro physical, even though most of my gaming done nowadays is on PC. When it comes to like physical media, there's an aspect about it that's very important that we just don't really get anymore. Oh yeah, none of that matters because of disc rot. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, although it's almost like taking care of stuff means they live longer. I don't know. Maybe that's just the meme I heard on the internet. But even then, because like it kind of changes the conversation. We're kind of talking about it, so we'll move into it just to kind of wrap this whole Xbox segment up. Stupid company with tons of money wasted it. The only way you're going to save Xbox is if they go back to appealing to the right audience, like they did with the original Xbox, and getting rid of all these whack gay interpretation of games that nobody cares about. But that's. I'll make that another segment for another video because I could probably go in depth about the whole Xbox situation. But ultimately, what you need to know is that they're all idiots and they have been idiots since 2013. Anyway, moving on. Let's get to this next one. So these next three are kind of all together. So I'll blend them. GTA 6 and the hypocrisy of gamers, PlayStation's betrayal, and what I think is the overall cure for gaming. So let's just leave it here for the cure to gaming. We're going to talk about different aspects about it, and because like I said, all these things kind of lead into each other, especially when it comes to physical media, what physical media means in the future, if there is a future. I personally do believe there is a future for physical media, but it won't be coming from the usual suspects. So physical media, is it important? Absolutely. Why is it important? The biggest reason why it's important is because it gives power to the consumer. There's a value proposition there. You can't resell a digital key at all, but I can resell any of those games to make my own personal profit. That's the biggest advantage for physical. Yes, it's not as convenient as digital, but digital, again, like I said, in an old video, unless digital meets or exceeds the expectation and standards set by physical media, it ain't gonna hold, in my opinion. So unless I can get a refund for a game I purchased digitally and get something back, whether it be credit or money, prefer money, but until an exchange like that can exist on the digital use interface or whatever, it's never going to come close. Physical will always win. It will always win. So whether disc rot or not, disc rot is the thing. Saturn games are basically near extinction. Emulation kicked up a few years back. And I understand, like, again, nothing lasts forever. But the problem is that what we're not getting a genuine solution. By the time disc rot matters, it's so far it's one of those it's a non-issue because of if disc rot was like that widespread, we would have adopted digital forever ago, or we wouldn't even bothered with disc to begin with. The disc have such a long lifespan, long longevity, especially if you take care of it. And like you said, reviving disc is easy nowadays, printed covers and all, which is a big appeal for physical. So, and not only that, it's not even just disc. Physical can mean a lot of different things: cartridges, disc, another proprietary format of storing something on a physical piece of equipment. Like, it doesn't just begin and end with CDs. So, I have discs that I've been playing since what, early, like when I was in middle school. They work just fine, sound just fine. So, like, to me, like, disc rot is a non-issue. People over exaggerate the effect of something like that. Like, does it exist? Yeah. Just like how, if you smoke, you'll get cancer. It's like, yeah, I mean, you could. Some people don't. That's a wild analogy, but ultimately, I'm saying it's not even that big of an issue. And with ways, if we can maintain the physical economy, that's an advantage for consumers. Something consumers should want, in my opinion. Because you got a lot of shields who go out of their way to just like, oh, digital is just a future. Like, they try to they kick dust over the conversation so that you don't get a chance to speak on why it's important, why physical media is important, why it matters, and why it's an advantage that corporations should never have over consumers. I can still make money off of all those games, just rot or not. A lot of especially if you look at a lot of other games that are rare games, cost hundreds of dollars for the old disc that apparently is like or whatever. Nothing wrong with digital as long as you have full control. Exactly. That's where the conversation needs to kind of like pivot to, instead of everybody kind of getting caught up in the what aboutisms in these conversations. Like I said, digital, for all of its convenience, it's not good enough. It's not there yet. And by the way it's been going, they don't want it to be there. That's why when Sony announced, oh, no more physical media, everyone's losing their mind. Now, of course, my position is a little bit more radical, because I'm like, why are you looking forward to Sony anyway? Like, all of these mega corporations have been trying to fuck you since 2013. Why are you still placing any type of faith that they're going to honor anything? To me, this is a more radical view. I'll admit. Hold on, before I say it, let me catch up on the chats. Can you roast Jason Schreier? I think isn't he that journalist guy that everyone just kind of shits on? I mean, what haven't you already heard? I think, feel free to correct me, but I think he made like a post or something talking about why digital is better and physical needs to be phased out. Retard, if that's what that was. Nothing wrong with digital as long as you have full control. But future has thought as if that's an argument. What if the future doesn't suck? Will they shield for it then? They'll shield for anything. It kind of comes back to the thing of where are your standards? Where are your expectations? A lot of these people they're just blindly just walking and thinking that they have an opinion on something that they genuinely ultimately don't care about. It'd be different if you care. People like us, when we talk about this in detail, we talk about it, we bitch about it so much because we care. There's like, look, if you're gonna ask me to spend upwards of $100 for a fucking downloadable code, I need some type of insurance policy, not just a refund policy that doesn't mean shit. By the way, Steam needs to update that. That's what I was talking about, Gashes, the other day. Steam is one fucked up policy away from being thrown by the wayside. As much as we all love Steam, don't get me wrong, I love me some Steam. It's not enough because they have DRM. Like there's plenty wrong with Steam. They're the crabs that pull us to the bottom of their bucket and slop sumers. Yep. Wouldn't trust the game company to sit the right way on the toilet seat. Yeah, because they've already shown their hand. They've proven this. Even back then when the Xbox jumped on the sword when it came to like taking away ownership of physical media and stuff, And PlayStation snapped back with their whole, hey, this is how we share games. Even back then, I was just like, they were in on it. Because all of these guys are like in cahoots. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Because all you have to do is just pay attention. Look who's doing it now. Oh, years later, everyone thought Xbox was the villain for doing what they did, only for Sony to go back and do exactly that 10 times worse and be like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Not buy GTA 6? Yeah, the game's 500 gigabytes. Who gives a shit? Who cares that storage and memory prices are up the ass? You're going to pay $100 for this fucking digital download copy. What are you going to do? Not play it? Now, that's where we kind of get to this part I put here. Whoops. Let me do that. The GTA 6 and the hypocrisy of gamers. There's a lot of gamers who just like their standards are so low, or they just don't have any to begin with. There are so many people out there that are just excited for the new GTA that they don't like when you start talking about this shit, their brain just shuts off. They just like, look, dude, I do not care about all the shit you're talking about when it comes to ownership or this or that or whatever. I just want game. Give game now. I want game now. I'm gonna play it for 30 minutes to an hour and then I'm done. Yeah, slot consumers cannot be saved. They're unsavable. Sir, it's 676. Oh, geez, my bad. I forget. Haven't been all over it like that. GTA, I saw a YouTube video titled "You Are Gay, Raped, and Trans If You Buy GTA 6." $100 for a game that won't even be close to as good as Vice City or San Andreas. See, that's another thing. Again, we all like to we all consult to the wall and the writing placed upon it when it comes to it. One of the main guys behind GTA no longer working on the game. That's a big deal. A lot of people don't want to admit that. GTA 6 is going to be a really big wake-up call for most people. You're correct, but it won't be enough because I feel like, I was doing so good. I believe that most people will not consider the implications of it. And if they do, after it's too late, they won't have learned a lesson because they ultimately didn't care. That's kind of what we're up against. Like we're going up against apathetic at worst. At the worst, most people, they just don't care. They're just here. Back when gaming was like more niche. That's why one of my taglines is make gaming niche again. Make gaming niche again. Gaming has become so broad and mainstream that you unfortunately draw in all of these people who just don't care. Not really. Not enough to really have a competent viewpoint. They're shills who just want to make a quick buck, especially in this new attention economy. Oh, you're dead if you don't have the latest game. GTA 6 is going to come out and you're not going to completely base your entire personality and online presence around it. You may as well be dead. So it's like, man, I expect to see a gigantic spike in piracy in the near future. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. If you haven't been pirating, you ain't doing it right. You are missing the point because one saying that's been gaining a lot of traction over time is if purchasing isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing. Flawless logic as far as I'm concerned. Because, like I said, when it comes to things going digital, there's so many things that people aren't taking into consideration that people have this extremely narrow view on how they think things are or should be, that they don't sit down and think like, okay, if we just all decide to go digital tomorrow, what do we lose? Most people are thinking like, well, I'm not losing anything because it's convenient to, already what was the last physical game you purchased? They pull all these straw man arguments out of the ass as if that's like a legitimate point to make. It's like, well, what aren't you considering? Like for you to have such a confident stance in something because the industry is pushing that opinion, and a lot of people who aren't that smart are just they're having their immediate hot take off of it. Like, what are we actually losing? What in consideration? Where's the value lost? Because physical and digital are as different as it gets. It can't be more different. But where's the consideration there? Because there was a time where people, when they had these conversations and debates, things were considered that even you would have missed. It's like, oh man, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's great that digital is more convenient, but wasn't the entire point, one of the pluses for digital, wasn't it supposed to be cheaper? Because we're not spending money on producing the physical stuff like the case and the book. Wouldn't that make sense? That would make sense. Like, hey, if that was an advantage that digital have, people, imagine if GTA 6 was coming out, right? It's an alternate timeline. GTA 6 is coming out, and there's still a physical version, and then there's a digital version. Let's say Blu-ray technology has discs that can read up to a terabyte. Memory and all this stuff has gotten so optimized. There are terabyte Blu-ray discs now. Just kind of walk with me here. And you have the option between digital and physical. Now, physical comes with it's a little bit more expensive because to produce these type of discs, it's going to cost you. Now, digital exists, and it's like, even though you're still using up the same amount of space, it's confined to your main, whatever system you're playing it on, whether it's a console or a PC, where you have a little bit more flexibility with your storage options. Or let's say you want digital or physical. We have the next generation of Blu-ray discs that can hold up to a terabyte per game. And for whatever reasons, games are still getting fucking massive or whatever. So I can understand why a physical version of GTA 6, everything on it, no multiple disc thing. Let's just assume in the future, the future that would have been nicer, is that physical evolved along with the size of these games. I could see that being the base cost for that being significantly more than digital, because in that universe it makes sense, because what you're paying for is not you're not getting something tangible, but you can justify paying more for something physical because now you have it. And let's say in 2-3 years or however long, where you're like, okay, I've had my fun with GTA 6 and it's been a few years, the value of the game is whatever dropped, but it's still a really popular game. You're done with it, sell it to your friend for a discount. Let's say you bought it, the physical on release for $80. The physical version was 80 and the digital was 65, 70, whatever. Let's just do $10, $70. And you sell it to your friend who's got limited, like, hey, yeah, man, I have this, I just got my hands on a PlayStation 6, and my storage options are limited. And I can't really afford, I can afford the digital version, but I don't have any money to get the expansion to my PlayStation hard drive to fit it on there. Don't worry, bro, I got you. I'll sell you my copy for $30. You'll have it. It's on the disc. And the only updates you'll need are patches that can be applied around the game. You don't have to worry about downloading a whole nother fucking game on top of it for it to work. What's exactly wrong with that kind of future? Why can't we have that? Why do we always accept this premise that the future has to come at a cost of what we have, what's there? No one takes that into consideration. Well, let me catch up on some of these. Here, I expect to see a giant spike in government overreach in the future. Oh yeah, that's the other half. We'll say that for another video, because to me, all this stuff is kind of building together. And writing's been on the wall forever, but only people who can see are paying attention. We're seeing that in real time already. Yep. Piracy is full of viruses. It is, but you kind of have to be. Piracy is something. It's really exclusive for people who know better. You have to know how to navigate that stuff. Like, nothing's easy. It's not easy, but it's better than just getting fucked over where the option just doesn't exist. What we really want are options. That's ultimately what we want at the end of the day. Give me options instead of just taking shit from me and telling me it's better. Like, I'm not obligated to believe the future is better because you told me so. You didn't tell me shit. Let me double check my headset. This jump be turning off randomly. But yeah, so GTA 6 is 6 terabytes, bro. Hold on. 12 copies will fill my entire piracy stack of old hard drive. What the fuck? Do mods like 25 megabytes. Well, it I don't know. It's crazy, man. I don't think it's like 6 terabytes. It's like a 600 something gigabytes, almost a terabyte, like 55, 60% the size of a terabyte. No physical means no midnight release, no hype. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't mind things like midnight releases and stuff because that's the level of hype that that it doesn't exist anymore. I think in some capacity it would still be around, not as much as it was back in the day, but people like physical things. Now we wouldn't still be paying so much for them if that wasn't the case. But just to kind of go back to where I was at, like I said, PlayStation betrayal, just to kind of like go back and put a pin in this one. It's not a betrayal. PlayStation is doing what they've always wanted to do. All these companies want the same thing. They would love for you to not be able to purchase the game anywhere else because now they don't have to worry about let me plug that in. They don't have to worry about competing with, let's say, a mom and pop shop, a GameStop, or anywhere else. Now, the only place you can get the game is through us, where we can control the price. Ironically, the thing a lot of these companies, 0.6 terabytes. All right, sorry, nigga can't read. But why did I just say? I'm about to say 0.6 again. But where they removed the option for you to get it anywhere else. If that it's clearly that's like the power play here. So it's really frustrating where they want to own your ass and they want you to want it too. And they're right. It's frustrating, but a lot of these companies are correct in their assessment of making these moves because of how malleable the gaming community is. So many people in the gaming community, like I said, it's gone mainstream now. Just a bunch of fucking LARPers and shills and idiots just running around, and because we have a new what do you call it? We have a new economy, the attention economy, running around where people want to tie their influence and fame, notoriety to the latest, greatest thing. So a lot of people are just gonna be all in with GTA because to them it's a money-making opportunity. It's more than just a game. They look at it as investing. So of course they're all for it because without GTA, how are they gonna grow their brand on their YouTube channel? So that's why it goes beyond just it's a game or whatever. But yeah, when it comes to the betrayal of PlayStation, it wasn't a betrayal. They were just doing what made sense at the time. They're like, hey, Xbox fell on the sword. They wanted to test it, and obviously back in 2013, it was too early. It wasn't ready yet. But conversations about going full digital has always been a part of the conversation. Several games that have released since then have been pushing for digital. Mortal Kombat 11, for example. I made a whole video about that where I talked about the exact same fucking thing. Where it's like, yeah, so much of this game is dependent on the internet for it to work. Is it even really still the game anymore? Like back in my day when you got a game and once it released and you had it, it was all right there on the disc. Now they were selling games where half the game is on the disc and the other half is only accessible online. So don't think for a second that Sony betrayed anybody. All these publishers and companies wanted the same thing, and they've been slowly but surely pushing in that direction. And the only people with the backbone to stand up to it were gamers who were making the same arguments that we've been making now because there was no give for us. Yes, the conversation needs to evolve, but the point remains. If you want physical, and again, I said it earlier, but here's my radical take when it comes to physical. Stop looking for Sony. You're an idiot if you think Sony is going to somehow accommodate physical media, or these people running around saying like, "Oh, PS6, no disc, no buy." We're well past that, dude. That is so dead and gone. Stop. Just stop. You look silly saying something like that because you expect billionaire corporation to acquiesce to like a minority of gamers who care about this thing. You want to know the here's what I see in that. I see opportunity in that situation because Sony has made it clear that they don't need you anymore. Xbox is clear they don't need you anymore. Like I said before, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure all these companies and corporations are all on the same team. They all want the same thing, Nintendo included, because they did the same thing. People over here saying, "Well, I guess Nintendo is the only one that like another idiot not paying attention." Because Nintendo, like, hey, yeah, here's a physical cartridge, but you still need to connect to the internet to download the game. So it's like, stop. The only way you're going to get what you want is if you divorce the current gaming industry. That's the only way. We have to just stop. We have to stop with Sony, stop with Capcom, stop with Sega, Microsoft, Nintendo, all of these companies. Here's a scenario that I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today about. And again, this is where I say, I wrote down here, where there's a cure for gaming, but 99% of the gaming community does not have the backbone to commit to it because it's so radical and it requires a genuine dismissal of everything you understand about gaming as it is currently implemented. A lot of people aren't ready for that. There are people who are just down with Capcom until the end of days. Same thing for Sega, somehow. Same thing for Rockstar Games, all this stuff. But the future, in my opinion, it has to come in the form of a genuine, it's risky, but it's difficult, it's risky. But anything that's worthwhile is. Anything that's worthwhile are those things. It is difficult, it is risky. If you want physical games, physical media, you have to start over. There needs to be a new hardware developer. There needs to be a new software developer that makes games exclusively for this new hardware. And the new hardware has to be something that's affordable, reasonable, and built from the jump with limitations in mind. That's why, talking about earlier when I went over the Steam Machine, that's part of why the Steam Machine is so appealing to me. Because Valve went out of their way to intentionally target this type of hardware. Because I think they said at the time that the Steam Machine is better than 70% of the overall Steam, Steam online server as far as hardware from what they've collected. The Steam Machine is at or slightly above that performance area, which to me makes perfect sense because not everybody is running around with a 4K gaming monitor and a 5090 whatever the fuck to play their games at still shitty frame rates because games don't optimize for shit these days. Like the average gamer is playing on something that produces quality 1080p performance, 1080p, 60 FPS. If you're balling, 1440. If you're crazy and insane, I guess 4K, but I think that's a minority within a minority. If anything, 1080p and 1440 are battling for the general overall use case. And most GPUs, low-end GPUs, can hit that just fine with tweaks. So the Steam Machine, in my view, just to kind of circle back to it, is a perfect compromise for what the future of gaming could be in the form of a new console that is completely divorced from the current gaming industry. When I say divorce, I mean complete, like walk away. Everything that is applied to the current industry, we're done with. There's nothing there for you anymore. But thought I heard something. But moving forward, the support for that console comes from the minority within the gaming community that really does want physical media and a system to play on a genuine, a real console. I ain't talking about another PC. Let me make sure I go back. I'm using the Steam Machine as a reference, but ultimately an actual console, a console in the traditional sense. So think about it like this. There's been a few games. I have two in particular that I can think of that were runaway hit successes when they came out. Not counting, shit that's happened since then, but, games when they came out. No, three games. Three games that came out that were just like the bee's knees. They blew up. Ain't no telling how much money each game generated on their own. They're all indie to AA tier releases, not AAA. Don't require a soul sacrifice to run. You can play these games on relatively low to mid-range hardware and have a very acceptable performance. Power World, Helldivers 2, Mecha Chameleon. So in this, I'm going to create a new scenario. Let's say those three games haven't come out yet. Let's say they're planned and all this stuff. But in this alternate timeline, let's say the gaming industry as a whole, the community has kind of been fed up with the state of the current community, the gaming industry, everything going wrong with their push away from physical, all that stuff. And these three developers who aren't associated with anything in the current industry, they're literally indie. Let's just call them indie. I know Arrowhead and Helldivers was associated with Sony, but for the sake of the conversation, just follow me here. Let's say these are three games that are going to have blockbuster level. They're going to have the same level of success as they did in this timeline, right? So let's say they all signed into an agreement not to work together. They're all still different studios competing or whatever, but a new console manufacturer entered the picture who wanted to take gaming back. They wanted consoles to be consoles again, not glorified lockdown PCs. And this is a limited console. It is a true console, like to the same tier of a PS2. Not in terms of like functionality, but just as like it has the power appeal of the Steam Machine. That's the limiter compared to everything we have now. But it focuses on the console gaming aesthetic experience. Easy to play, easy to get into, plug and play, and local whatever. Let's say that new console came out, and the three launch titles that came with it were Mecha Chameleon, Helldivers 2, and Power World. Don't you think on some level, even in this scenario, in this unlikely but possible scenario, that if those three games released and they had we're kickstarting a whole new console competitor, that they understand what they are. They're not trying to compete with Sony and Microsoft because those guys have gotten so big and they've lost the plot. They're out. Okay. So we're starting over fresh. And those three games were launch titles for this new hypothetical console. Do you not think that will, if those games were as popular as they were, let's say if they were going to be on something else, they were on PC, but for the sake of conversation, these were locked exclusives to this new console, right? And let's say they had the same explosion in appeal and popularity. Don't you think that would submit a new standard across the industry? Never before seen since 6th gen. To me, that's my radical approach to this. Instead of relying on Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, these three companies that have made it abundantly clear that they are leaving you behind, so to speak. You're just like, it's not about what it used to be. None of the people who built those companies back in the 90s and early 2000s, where we were smitten by them, they're all gone. They're not a part of those companies anymore. Even though like this loyalty to Sony, I've been playing with Sony games since I was a kid. It's like, dude, that's not the same Sony. Ever since they left Japan and moved to California, that should have been like the thing. That should have been like, oh, okay, this ain't Sony. Not really. Same thing with Microsoft. Or that your hint that they're no longer Microsoft was when the attempt with the Xbox One back in 2013. Nintendo, same thing when Reggie Fils-Aimé was no longer working there. And I think it was I forgot the name of the guy who died. I'm not a Nintendo guy, but I think it was Iwata or something. When he passed away, and Nintendo started moving like just another modern console developer like Xbox and Sony. Switch 1, Switch 2. There's an aspect that each of these companies have made a very radical move that really should have disincentivized anyone from remaining a loyal follower for these companies, in my opinion. So it's one of those things where we're kind of it's pretty clear where we are now, what's happening, what's going on. So I'm not, how do I put it? I'm not surprised, but it's one of those things where neither should you. No one should be surprised, because we're at a point in the gaming history where things are moving in the direction, and many of us are not. We're not really Iwata Satoru. Okay, the only good CEO in existence. Yeah. But we're experiencing a shift in gaming that has been occurring for at least 15 years. We again, the writing has been on the wall forever, and the only way you didn't notice it is if you weren't paying attention, if you didn't really care, if you like. I can only give you so much grace for being ignorant, depending on when you got into gaming. If you're young, but if you're like somebody like me who's in their mid-30s, who've been doing this damn near their whole life, and you somehow didn't see it, that means you never cared about gaming. You didn't care, because like to you, gaming is just a thing you did to pass the time. Me, I like to think that I'm passionate about gaming enough to care about the state of it existing in the near future, if it will. We have all the situation with Xbox with the layoffs and all these game companies and publishers closing down because they make nothing but dog shit. The influence from corporations like BlackRock and all that stuff, putting all this shit into the game. These what do you call it? These consultancy groups. There's so much happening in gaming that, to me, I think the safe bet, if you care about gaming, not games, gaming, the art of it, your hobby, the soul of gaming as itself, it can't be associated with specific games. It's just the act that matters. So instead of your commitment to gaming being tied to GTA or Dead or Alive, the future that we all actually want, that's going to require more in the way of sacrifice than most people are comfortable expressing or admitting. That's why I'm talking about it here. That's why I say 99% of gamers don't have the backbone to actually commit to the cure for gaming, because it means walking away from the current industry as a whole. Not saying you can't play those games. The consumer gonna consume, right? But if what we want is a console that is committed to physical media, it's something that has to be built. Otherwise, it'll never exist. It's not like we have an interesting opportunity to do it, despite what's available to us today. Whereas back in the day, all that stuff didn't exist. That's why it came to be. Versus now, we have the blueprint for back then. It's right there. We've experienced it. We lived it. We've seen it. But now that we're in this new environment that's being largely controlled by corporations and all this money laundering, backing, what do you call these people? Lobbying, all this stuff by the same companies that we helped build. These companies got as big as they did because of us. There was a time where Capcom was just this little thing, and now it exploded to this big thing where they're comfortable just kind of occasionally just shitting on us at their discretion. That leak that happened a few years ago where all that new weird shit they're putting in games, it's like, look, that's not something that we would want. Again, you have to be paying attention. But so when I see, like, when people talk about, well, the amount of people who want physical media is insignificant. Like, okay, if it's so insignificant, then why don't that small, insignificant minority of people pack up, leave, commit to building something else that'll actually give us what we want. Because don't get me wrong, yes, it's been years since I bought a physical game, but I haven't bought a physical game because I don't think these modern consoles, they're not really consoles. They're wannabe PCs. I don't see the value there. That's why I just shifted to PC. And I didn't shift to PC under the assumption that digital is just a way to go. Like, it was just the objectively better option. Objectively. Because like I said, these consoles haven't been consoles for a long time. The last physical game I think I bought was Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man for the PS4. And, then there's a whole thing with remasters and all that stuff. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's been happening. And these consoles don't have the same appeal that they once did. If there was a genuine console that was not subjected to the normal isms of modern day gaming, I would be all over that shit. It would be like, for me, like a Dreamcast. The Dreamcast is my favorite console of all time. And, even though the PlayStation 2 was better, it was objectively the best console ever created. To me, the Dreamcast is like my favorite. But we used to be able to have conversations like that. How you could have a favorite console. No one loves PlayStation 5. No one gives a shit about the Xbox Series X. The only console that kind of can get away with it is Nintendo, but that's just you're shilling now, because the Switch 2, you're still acquiescing to a lot of the things that ruin the gaming experience overall. So, yeah, when I see people online complaining about like Sony and stuff, it's like, look, you're wasting your time. You have people out here who are okay spending $100 for a sheet of paper with a code on it. Like, the battle has been lost. And even if you could get that, why would you want it from these people? These people who have been going above and beyond to like stifle your ability to own your own content. I think it was about a week or so ago where Sony had a licensing dispute or something, or they dropped the license, and several movies and stuff that people purchased just disappeared from the library. Who's to say the same can't happen to games? They're all types of licensing agreements that go into a game's development, whether it's for licensed material, IPs, or whatever. If you honestly think that game isn't subjected to just being removed from your library, you're an idiot. Because this is another one of the advantages of physical. Crazy Taxi for the Dreamcast, one of the best games ever made. Oh yeah, you could buy it on Steam, the digital version, with all the music fucking ripped out of it. See, it's little things like that most people just ignore. The value of physical is that this is, you can't change this. Once you have it, it's there. It's a physical disc. You can't change. You can't patch that out of a disc. You can't patch out the very popular soundtrack of a video game that was licensed to Sega 30 years ago, but they lost the license between then and now. So yeah, they'll resell you the game, but it won't be the same game. It's like, yeah. Gas was playing. Yeah, exactly. Like, stuff like that's important, and you never hear this part of the conversation in the broader discussion because people are just so content with shilling or the bare minimum, or admit, some people, and this isn't a dig at them, they just don't know enough. They're unaware. They don't know any better. Yeah. Hey, the KFC store is still in there. Yeah, they were able to keep that. But you know what's not in there? Pizza Hut. I think so. I think Pizza Hut's not in there. It's either Pizza Hut or Levi's. One of those stores were changed in the digital version of the game. So look it up. And like, even though, because back then, like, to have a physical copy, or in the case now, what most people have, who care, the ROM, like that is a premium piece of history that can't be changed. See, the problem with digital, they can go in and change that shit. That's one of the many drawbacks of digital. Like, putting aside the cost and all that shit, like, what is it? You have these companies who have the ability to go in, mess with what was once what it was, change it, resell it to you. That ain't right. That's not right. You know, that's the value of physical. Physical locks this. It's like it's time in a bottle. You can't get that back with digital. Somebody else has the power to fuck that up. You know, digital is just someone else's computer. Even if it's on your computer, it's getting to a point where they can still fuck with it. Just like the video I made a while ago about Monster Hunter, where it's like, oh, an update from Capcom breaks the game. Why did they do that? Well, you know, we don't want you modding the game. It's like, oh, yeah, you know, all this money is spent. I forgot I just bought a license and I'm not allowed to do nothing to it. Fuck off. That's where you can take your digital shit, shove it up your ass. Not like the advantages of digital, they almost don't exist. But okay, that was my. I think it was like 2.5. I'm at 2.5 hours. Not bad, not bad at all. So to me, that's in my opinion, that's my cure for gaming. The cure is a complete removal, divorce of the current industry in its entirety. You can't. We have to build a new Sega. We have to build a new Capcom. We have to build a new console manufacturer, not developed by Microsoft, not backed by Sony, not supported by Nintendo. It has to be its own thing, completely divorced. Now, again, you know, I don't have all the details or information about how to do that. I just know it's possible. It has to be. It has to be possible. What do we have to do it? Let's find out. Let that be the conversation instead of arguing about signing the petition to make Sony do something that they don't want to do. You can't force corporation to. Anyway, that's stupid. Yeah, fucking no PS6, no buy. So fucking what? Like, you're one versus a sea of normies, of normie fags who don't care. Not that they don't know, they don't care. They do not care. As long as they have GTA 6 in front of them, just like the Dead or Alive 5 guys, not 5, Dead or Alive 6 guys, it don't matter what it is. As long as it has the thing they want written on it, they will buy it. And they outnumber you 10-1. It's time for us to leave. There's nothing left for us here. It's over. It's so jover, bro. So, like, the sooner people, like, and like I said it all the time, it doesn't feel good. I know. It sucks seeing all of your favorite things fall apart, but how long do you have to see the world on fire before you get an extinguisher and put it out yourself? You want your games to be physical? Find them. You put them on a disc. Stop waiting for Nintendo or Sony to do it for you. That's your responsibility now, not theirs. They're not interested. They haven't been interested in over a decade, 15 years at least. You want physical media? You make it. That's your job now. You figure it out. Don't know? The internet is there. You figure it out. GOG exists. Figure it out. But, ladies and gentlemen, that was the discussion that I had for today. We covered several topics, and boy, that was a doozy. Some a little bit longer than others. But I hope at the very least this was informative, just to kind of give you my overall hot takes on a lot of the things that have been going on. I wanted to make individual videos, but I'm not going to lie. I've been having a hard time like committing to that. Not mainly because a lot of information now is kind of like it comes in such. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. And I would rather address it in the form of a live stream than writing out an entire script for something in a video and then the video be out there just to have to undo all that shit later. Rather just kind of go off the cuff talking about it as I go, just as the information does. But there still needs to be regular video formats made. Excuse me. Make sure I cover that so they don't be looking at me for money. But yeah, like the fix for gaming It's in the hands of players, people who care, and the sooner people kind of reach that conclusion and stop wasting their time trying to get a fix from people who don't want the fix. These people have too much. These companies have too much power, and they know they do. They don't care if whether or not we want something or not. And you know, it's time to fucking bring back Manifest Destiny. It's time. Just take it. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for permission from people who don't care about you. It's a waste of time. You look stupid. You look silly. No PlayStation, no disc, no buy. They don't give a fuck. If projections for not Resident Evil, if projections for Grand Theft Auto 6 have them potentially making the budget back for that game just back off of pre-orders alone, pre-orders for a digital product, they're talking about they're projected to make all of the money back. It's one of the most expensive game in history, as big as that budget is. If they're projecting off of pre-orders alone that they made all that money back, you're done. It's over. They don't give a fuck about you and your digital, your physical disc and your digital concerns. You may as well be. You're just a fart in the wind. You're already gone. By the time you escaped, you're gone. They don't care. It's over. Consumers no longer have the leverage they once had. If we want that leverage, we have to develop it ourselves. All these companies have they turned their back on you forever ago. Stop it. You look silly. But anyways, folks, that'll do it for today's video. I'm ready to hop on some video games myself. I hope you enjoyed that little bit of a rant live stream covering all these different topics. And yeah, I might follow up, talk about some other stuff, some old videos that I brought up, games or gaming. I think I don't know, maybe I should like share it or re-upload it or something just to kind of bring that part of the conversation back. It's a few years old. But it's just as informative, just as important today as it was back then. But the biggest takeaway I want everyone to kind of get from this stream is that the fixes that we want, the future that we want, is one that we have control over. Not the current industry is gone instead. Stop. You can buy whatever you're gonna buy, play whatever you're gonna play, but if what we want is a future where physical is still the standard, we have to rebuild that standard ourselves and just walk away. But yeah, I might repost some of those videos just to kind of kick up the discussion a little bit more. But in the meantime, folks, your Immortal Afro Josh, you have been watching Gaming for the Boys, and I'll see you on the next upload. I hope you guys enjoyed. But I'm out of here. Y'all take it easy. Where's my there it is. Until next time, peace out.